Hello everyone, welcome to yet another live conversation on test prep by InsideIIM. My name is Charul and today I have with me three non-engineers who aced CAT 2021. Not only did they have an overall high percentile, but also a 99 plus percentile in the Quant section, which actually happens to be a dreaded section for many non-engineers. Today we'll try to take a peek into their prep journey. So welcome on board Ruchika, Vaidehi and Chirag. Thanks for joining us. I'd request you to please introduce yourselves to our audience and then let's get started with today's conversation. Let's start with you, Ruchika.
Hello, my name is Ruchika. I'm a commerce graduate from St. Xavier's College, Kolkata. I scored a 99.48 percentile in CAT last year and I'll be joining IIM Calcutta this year.
That's lovely. What about you, Chirag?
Hello, everyone. I am Chirag Mann. I scored a 99.47 percentile in CAT and I am an English honors graduate from Hindu College, University of Delhi, and I would be joining IIM Ahmedabad this year.
Thank you, Chirag. What about you, Vaidehi?
Hello everyone, my name is Vaidehi. I am from Surat, Gujarat. I have just completed my BCom this year and I got a 99.42 percentile in CAT 2021 and I'll be joining IIM Lucknow this month.
Thank you, guys. So before we get into today's discussion around quants, I'd want to know what is your CAT story basically? When did you realize that getting an MBA is the way ahead for you in career and what actually kept you motivated throughout the journey? Let's start with you again, Ruchika.
Hi, so during the first year of my undergrad, like most others, I was very confused and I started pursuing certain professional courses, which I had taken up then primarily because I had classes in the evening and ample time during the day, which I wanted to utilize productively. But by the end of the 3 years of college, I realized that I wasn't enjoying the courses as much and my interest didn't align with the kind of job opportunities I would be offered post completion of those courses. And that's what prompted me to switch gears. And I realized that I wanted to explore other fields before settling down on one option. An MBA as a program offered that flexibility to me. So essentially, that's what motivated me to prepare for CAT, then appear for interviews, and finally enabled me to join as an incoming student in IIM Calcutta this year.
Right. Thank you. What's your story, Chirag?
If I have to tell you honestly, I did not want to pursue MA in English. And also like my father owns his own textile business. So in my long term, my aim is that I would grow that business. And so I had that thing in mind, but that is for the very long term. In the short term, I wanted to gain some corporate exposure and then I researched, talked to my peers and my seniors, and then I thought that MBA is a really nice option for me to not only get good corporate experience, but also at a good company or a good startup. So I thought, why not try for it? And here I am, wedded to IIMA.
That it couldn't have been better. Congratulations on that. What about you, Vaidehi?
So I'm from Gujarat, right? And you might know that people in Gujarat are very entrepreneurial. Matlab, every other person that you see here, they are into business. So having grown up in that atmosphere, business was always something which was in the back of my mind. And you get the inquisitiveness, right? कि इसमें क्या होता है and why do everyone around you gets into business. So वो था. And along with that, जब college में I got, I organized certain events. And वो सब जो experience आया तो I understood that management and business is something that really does interest me. And that is when I decided that, yes, I want to prepare for CAT and get into an old IIM basically to, pursue my MBA.
Right. Great, guys. So based on the journey you have told and the agenda behind you had actually for preparing for the MBA, I want to know when was it that you actually started preparing for CAT and how did you actually structure your journey from then on? Ruchika, what about you?
Yes, so from what I'd heard from my seniors, I wanted to strike a balance between not starting so early that I would end up losing steam towards the end. And at the same time, I didn't want to start so late that I would feel rushed and short on time to take sufficient mocks. So I'd started in the month of March, approximately late February, March, and that's the start. And then about 9 to 10 months in hand to prepare.
Right. And how did you structure your journey from then on, like building on basics and then mocks?
Right. So, like I said, I had 9 to 10 months in hand, and the first 1 month just went away in familiarizing myself with the format of the exam.
Right.
And after that, if I had like 8 to 9 months left, I divided that into 3 chunks for myself. So if I took an approximation of 8 months, I had 2 months for building on basics. And I would say a lot of that time was spent on quants because I felt like it was one section which I had under my control through preparation per se. So that was 2 months. The next 2 months, I supplemented my preparation in terms of moving on to the advanced stage along with taking sectionals and regular tests, shorter tests. And the last 4 months was just polishing with enough mocks in hand. And I'm talking about full length mocks here. So that was the breakup for me.
Right. What about you, Vaidehi?
So I started preparing a little from January. I mean, but my actual preparation started in April when I started giving the mocks. In that, from January to March, I mostly focused on quants because that is one section where you need to be good with the basics. So that is what I did in the initial 3 months. And from when the mock started, my preparation was constantly, in alignment with the mocks that I give. So before every mock, I had a certain target that I used to, make sure that I'm doing it. And yeah, that is how I aligned my preparation with the mocks, and that's how I went forward.
Right. What about you, Chirag? When did you begin?
So I wrote CAT twice. Once when I was in my third year, and then last year. So I started in the month of June in 2020. In that year, I took coaching from time. Earlier, it was offline, but then it shifted to online. So that year, I was not able to do good in CAT. I scored only 80% in CAT. So then I started again from March 2021. Initial few months, I worked on my weaknesses which were left in the last year. And then I gave a lot of mocks, like I joined the series of both IMS and Time. So I gave around 60 mocks. And I think that that was the thing which really helped me to score well this year.
Right. Okay, so guys, now let's start talking about the quant section, which is the agenda for the day. I want to know that based on your analysis of the CAT exam, what skills do you think IIMs are trying to test through the quant section? Anyone of you can take it up. Yeah, Ruchika, do you want to give it? Yeah, please do.
Okay, so like I have given CAT twice. So what I think is that you need to be clear with your basics. Like people will tell you that you need to cramp up these formulas in maths like we used to do in school. कि बस ये सब रट के जाओ and you will be able to score well in maths. But that is not the case in CAT. The questions which you get are more, they test the basic, like whether you know this topic in depth or you don't. Because even if you know that topic, you will take more time to solve the same question which can maybe be solved in less than a minute. So I would say one thing in quants, you need to build your basics in the initial few months, because if you have a strong base, then you will automatically do well in mocks and you will eventually score well in CAT also.
Right. Ruchika, Vaidehi, would you want to add something?
Yeah, just in addition to that, I think two traits that they could assess through our score in quants, essentially. It actually applies to all the 3 sections, but like I said, would also apply to quants then. One is the ability to handle pressure. And as much as one can prepare and focus on the basics, all of that is important, goes without saying. It's a cliche for a reason. But it's equally important to sort of just be calm enough to put all that preparation to use in that 40 minutes for that one section. And the other ability is the ability to prioritize, because you'll be given some 20 questions, maybe in like a span of 40 minutes. but we all know that you don't have to attempt all the 20 questions to do well, to get a good score. So just the ability to recognize your strengths, prioritize which questions you should attempt in that limited time span, that's a skill that they test not only through a section like Quant, but across the exam, all the 3 sections.
Right, exactly. Vaidehi, do you have something to add?
Yeah, so being a person who has literally dreaded the quant section in the initial phase of my preparation, I can say that quants is a section where you need to be consistent, right? If you're not going through those formulae and concepts every 1 week, you are going to forget them if you take a break in between. So I believe that consistency is one thing that the CAT tests through the quant section mainly, because so the key that I believe that मेरी preparation में it helped me is that April से लेके till the very end, I practice quant almost every day. And that is what I believe can help me achieve this percentile. So that is one thing that the CAT is basically testing from the quant section, that your ability to stay consistent in the preparations.
Right. And why was it that non-engineers generally dread the quant section? What do you think is the reason behind it?
So I believe that we have lost touch with numbers for quite a long time. I mean, we do have statistics in our syllabus, but again, the actual hardcore mathematics, we don't have that. So maybe that is one reason, we don't have the habit to practice maths as a subject. So I believe that is one reason why we usually dread maths, and also the notion that has built up that non-engineers are not very good at maths. So that adds to the nervousness.
Right. And guys, I want to know what were the resources that you had used throughout your throughout the preparation journey of yours. Ruchika?
Yeah, so I think for everyone who's watching the session, whether it's an engineer, non-engineer, one thing that I want to clarify, it's a struggle that I had very early on, was it's just so overwhelming to see that you have so many resources to practice from. And as a student, my approach has always been that I have to cover all resources, which is not true for CAT, and maybe it's not true for other exams, but definitely not true from CAT. I've realized from my journey. And what worked for me towards the end, I mean, retrospectively, it's always easier to say this, it's focus on one resource and ensure that it covers all aspects, but don't go running after resources. It could be coaching, any coaching institute's material. You could use that if you've joined. So personally, I joined an online coaching institute, Elite Grid, and they just gave all of the material to us in one place, and that really helped me. But to each their own. My point is that you should stick to one resource and not get bogged down by someone else's journey. Just focus on one resource, and that should do the job.
Right. So other than Elite Fit, were you referring to some other resource as well? Something online, some YouTube channels or something?
I think for my basics, I was just referring to the material that they gave to us. But in addition to that, I took sectional tests from Time and IMS. So that just polished my skills, refined some areas that I felt like I hadn't practiced enough during the basics preparation phase. That's what I refer to.
Right. What about you, Chirag? Which resources were you referring to?
If I talk about the YouTube channels, I watched videos of Rodha, that is Ravi sir, and I also joined an academy. So that was one thing which really helped me in quants. And for VRC, I watch videos of Jijo sir, like he is a faculty at CL. So I really liked his method of teaching. And apart from it, yes, I bought books of both Time and IMS.
Right. What about you, Vaidehi? What resources have you been referring to?
So for the concepts part, I also watched videos from Rodha Academy. And that is the only thing that I use for the concepts part, mainly because I found it very wholesome. I mean, it had everything from, the important questions, the different types of concepts and everything. So that is what I watched for the concepts. And for the practicing part, I used to solve questions on the past year mocks of Time, IMS, Career Launcher. And that is one resource that really worked wonders for me, because see, these institutes, when they prepare their mocks, they try to include every different type of question possible. And that is why I believe that it added the diversity that I needed in my preparation. And so that is what I use for my practice part. And again, you give about 50-60 mocks, right? So wo questions bhi aate hi hai for preparation. So yeah.
Right. Also, guys, when an aspirant starts preparing for the exam, the syllabus of Quant seems quite horrendous, as it's huge. So what do you think that for an aspirant who's starting just now in, like, say, May or June, which topics should he or she should focus more on? Anyone of you can give it a shot.
I would say that he should focus on the 3 A's, that is arithmetic, no, sorry, it is AAG, geometry, algebra, and arithmetic. Like these three topics take up around 80% of our syllabus. So like if he or she has less time in hand, then they can like give time to these three topics.
Right. Vaidehi and Ruchika, do you have something to add to this?
I agree and second Chirag's opinion. I personally started with arithmetic first. I then moved to algebra and later to geometry. And I'm glad I did that because I realized that geometry was not a strength for me. I found the questions to be very complex personally, and I ended up using hacks which did not always work, but it was just a section that I would say a topic within the section that I did not like as much. But on the other hand, arithmetic and algebra, I got the hang of those two topics early on. So I would also agree. And the problem with trying, and it's quite easy to fall into that trap of trying to cover everything, and then you also feel like, oh, I haven't done logarithms yet, or like a very small probability I haven't covered yet. But once you cover these three topics at least, you must start with sectionals or some sort of test, could be mocks as well, so that you know where you're at and you'll see an upward trend in your scores thereafter. But you should not let the idea of not having covered everything be a deterrent for you when you take mocks, please.
Right. Because aspirants generally believe that one should actually complete the syllabus and then start taking mocks. Right. Vaidehi, do you have something to add?
I have another, just a small point to add.
Yeah.
That all through the journey, I had this constant metric in mind that if I'm spending, let's say 10 hours on a topic, what's the realistic chance of that many questions appearing from that topic? And so when you're spending a lot of time on, let's say, probability, because you'll hear, and the more you talk to friends about their preparation journey, you'll hear someone spend, let's say, 10 hours on probability.
Right.
But you have to constantly assess where you're at, which is where mocks help a lot. So if you don't have as much time, if you have other commitments to cater to, you need to rationalize where you're spending your time on. And those three topics could be, let's say, arithmetic, algebra, and geometry. But I mean, keep that in mind and don't get so influenced by someone else spending a lot of topic on, let's say, a very niche, a lot of time on, let's say, a very niche topic, which might not appear that frequently in exams.
Right, the basic concept of ROI as an MBA aspirant.
True, very true.
Vaidehi?
So see, even I started with arithmetic because arithmetic is literally 40 to 50% of the quant section. And the concepts that you learn in arithmetic, they are used in every other part, whether it be DILR or even in other, algebra may or geometry may, the percentage calculation, the ratio. So वो सब में use आते हैं. So arithmetic is what I started with. And then see, arithmetic, algebra, and geometry are the three most important topics that we all know. But अब जैसे number system था, so that was one topic that I used to find a little difficulty in. So what I did was, I didn't give a specific time to it, but in the mocks, whenever a question of number system used to come up, I used to see the solution for it, and with that, I actually got to understand I'm now confident with the basic concepts of number system. And if an easy question comes up in number system, then I'll be able to solve it. And that's the key, right? You need to identify, you need to be sure that you actually know itne basic concepts ke how you'll at least be able to solve the easy questions that come up in the exam and you don't miss out on them. So that was my strategy basically.
Right. So now when we are actually talking about how we attempt mocks and stuff, I want to know what was your mock taking strategy specifically in quants. Let's start with you again, Ruchika.
So in the beginning, it was simply whatever topics I've completed, because like I said, when I started, I didn't feel like I had covered enough topics. So when I started, the topics that I had covered, whenever a question from one of those topics came up, I would solve those and I got a fair score through that method itself. And then later on, the more comfortable I got with topics, the more I discovered what my strengths and weaknesses were. I would go in a round by round format, but I would also focus on which topics come more naturally to me. So maybe like in the first round, I would attempt questions which came more naturally to me and at the same time didn't require as much time to solve. So essentially like a low hanging fruit. And then if I had extra time, I would move on to a question which I knew I could solve, but it would take a lot of time. So I would reserve those for the end, a format of that.
Right. And did you apply the same strategy on your final day as well?
I did. I think, thankfully, that's my personal experience. On the final day, like he said, after so many months, just the heavy realization that it's your basics that come to your rescue. That was a big one on the D-Day. And I think just through that method, through pure basics, you can solve the most easy questions, and there'll be a lot of those. So just focus on that and go in a round fashion, focusing on those questions should do the job ideally for most people.
Right. What about you, Vaidehi?
So in the initial phase of my preparation, as I said, when I aligned my preparation with mocks, right? So if I have a target of completing, say, time, speed, and distance until the next mock, so that is a duration of 4 to 5 days. So if I'm done with that topic, then I'll make sure that in the next mock, I am solving all the questions from time, speed, distance at least. I mean, the ones that I can. So that is one way that I used to focus on the topic that I have covered in the last 1 week. And so it gave me a clarity if the concept that I have covered, whether I've done that nicely or not. So initially I used to do that. And then again, as Ruchika mentioned, I used to, in the last phases of my preparation, I used to first solve the questions which take up a little time, and then going on in a, in a 3-stage kind of thing. Okay, first the ones that take up a little time, then the ones that I can solve, but it's not something that I am, very confident of solving in a lesser time. And then if I'm done with all those questions, then I would go to the questions that I'm not very confident about, only if I have time left on my watch. And that usually never happens, but yeah.
Yeah, right. What's your take on this, Chirag? How did you approach mocks?
Yes, like whenever you start with Quants, if you see question, you can do one of the 3 things, like either solve it in that moment, or you just mark it that okay, after the round 1 is over, you will then come back to it. Or number 3, you will leave it, like you have just left that question. So like in my round 1, I used to solve like out of 20, around 8 to 9 questions. And in round 2, the ones which I have marked, I used to solve them. So in each and every mock or in the CAT as well, there will be around 5 to 6 super hard questions which will either take up your time or will be too hard for you to solve. So you need to make sure that you don't even devote a single second to those and only focus on the easy and the medium ones.
Right. Also, guys, we get queries many times that after the mock, when you see the questions, you're able to attempt those questions. But several times when the pressure of timer is there on your head, you're not able to understand, or you're not able to figure out how to approach a specific question. So did any of you face such a problem, and how did you actually overcome it? Any one of you, if you would have faced it?
I would say that I didn't face this problem for quants as much, but I definitely faced this problem for LRDI. I think my weakest section was LRDI through the preparation journey and also on the day of CAT. And because questions come in sets in LRDI as compared to the other, at least as compared to quants, if you start with the wrong set and you're stumped right in the beginning, I at least used to feel like I've already lost out on time, and all my peers have at least moved forward. They've completed one set. And just that fear would lead to additional loss of time. So there's already loss of time because you haven't solved the set. Then you've lost additional time because of your mental construct. And just all of that led to that section going away too quickly without me even realizing what just happened in those 40 minutes. But like I said, one advantage that you have in quants is that questions don't come in sets. So if you've not been able to solve a question, you can quickly go on to the next one and keep telling yourself this, that you always have, say if it's the first question, you always have 19 more questions if it's a 20 question section to recuperate. So you don't have, at least in quants, you don't have to worry about that aspect.
Right. Also, guys, between two consecutive mocks, what used to be your mock analysis strategy to understand that, okay, these are the problems where I made mistakes and now this is the way I need to move ahead? How you used to basically analyze your mock tests? Let's start with you, Chirag.
Like if I have to talk about maths part only, like if out of 22, I was able to solve, let's say 12. So I first used to see those that the method which I used to solve them, is there any faster way to solve these? If there were any, then I used to make notes of it. Apart from it, the remaining 10, I used to first attempt them on my own, like see if I can solve them now, and then also look at the video solution and then make a note of that as well. So I used to maintain an Excel in which I used to put the screenshots, and I used to revise them on a weekly basis. Like these are my weaknesses on which I have to work.
Right. What was your strategy, Vaidehi?
I followed a similar strategy as what Chirag mentioned. So my only tip here would be that it is important to analyze each and every question which has come up in the mock, irrespective of whether you have got it right or wrong. Because when you solve a question for the second time, it might happen that a different method strikes your mind, and that is something which is more effective. So I used to analyze each and every question and also see the solution for each one of them, because as I mentioned, there might be a method which is better than yours. So yeah, it is important to go through every question at the second time when you're analyzing a mock. And also in response to the last question that you said, when you are solving a question after a mock, it happens we are able to solve it. Right. So another reason for that is when you are looking at the question while analyzing it, you have already seen the question once. And so in the mock, you face the question for the first time. And subconsciously that question does stick in your mind, and that is why jab you are revisiting it the second time, you are able to solve it. So that is why I believe that this is something that the aspirant should not worry about too much, because you're visiting the question for a second time, so it is bound to happen that you may be able to solve a few questions which you were not able to in the mock. So I just wanted to say that this is not something that you should worry about, and most of us go through this. So yeah.
Right. What about you, Ruchika?
I also followed a similar approach. I think most people do that. Just to add to Vaidehi's point, she mentioned how it's important to analyze every question and every mock that you've taken. And I personally remember I was talking to a lot of people who were preparing alongside. And I would hear that, let's say we've taken tests from IMS. They've attempted 4 mocks and I've only attempted 3. So in my mind, there would be that pressure कि नहीं पहले 4th mock attempt करो, you can analyze the 3rd one later, because already people have gone on to the 4th mock. And retrospectively, I feel like instead of running after more and more mocks, because let's face it, you'll have umpteen number and there's no end to the number of mocks that you can take. And at some point, you have to put a hard stop कि नहीं, you have to analyze the ones that you, because I personally felt like I had periods in between where I had attempted 2 mocks, not analyzed them, but had to attempt the 3rd one because I saw a lot of others. So instead of doing that, focus on attempting analyzing the mocks that you've attempted, because there'll be repetition of questions that's surely going to be there. And in addition to that, there is truly no end to the number of mocks that you can take. So just trust the process and focus on the preparation that you've done. And I mean, at some point, because I did this a lot, I would recommend you not to compare your journey constantly with someone else's, because constraints are different, variables are different, and you realize this sooner or later.
Right. So I want to know that when you used to attempt mocks and sections, first of all, how many mocks and sections did each of you attempt specifically for quants? Chirag?
If I have to tell about mocks, it would be around 60, and for quants, I would say around 10.
Sectionals,
Sectionals,
like individual
yes.
sections. Okay.
Yes.
Vaidehi?
So I didn't attend many sectional tests, mainly because it was a 2-hour test, right? So, and being a fresher, I didn't have the pressure of my job, on me. So I could give 2 hours of my time. So that is why I believe that I should attempt more mocks instead of sectional tests, because quants is a section that comes in the end, right? And to go to that section after solving VARC and DILR, that is something that I thought that I need more practice on. And that is I only attempted mocks and not many sectional tests. And I attempted about 50 mocks in total.
Right. What about you, Ruchika?
So for me, I think in terms of the mocks, I must have attempted some 35 mocks approximately. And I think I attempted more number of sectionals purely because taking a 2-hour mock sometimes would become exhausting for me. And if I attempted a sectional a day, I felt like I'd taken a test in some format. So that way I had approximately 20-ish sectionals and then 35 full length.
Full length, yeah. Also, guys, after having given so many number of sectionals and mocks, which particular source of resource do you think was the closest to the CAT exam? I mean, if you can pin down it to a particular test series or something. Any of you can give it a shot based on your experience.
IMS, like I gave around 40 SimCats, and in fact, the one RC which came in CAT was actually from one SimCat only. So how close can you get than this? So I think that is a really good source to practice. Apart from it, I think time and CL are also good, but IMS is a bit better than these two.
Right. Also, now I want to know next that based on your journey, what are the common mistakes you would want to pin so that our aspirants could take some value from it? Vaidehi?
So one mistake that I personally made even till the last week leading up to the CAT was most of my friends are engineers, right? And when I used to listen to them, so they were like, we are attempting about 80 to 90% of the quant section. How many questions attempt kar rahe hain? And that is then what happened was my focus subconsciously started to turn to attempting more questions and to be more to attempt the section more speedily. And what happened is in that doing that, my accuracy got affected. So that is something that a mistake that I made, and I think most of the aspirants do that. Sabki baatein sun ke we try to focus on we focus on speed more than the accuracy. And fortunately, in the last week up to the CAT exam, I realized that it's okay if I don't attempt a lot of questions. What is important is the ones that I am attempting, I do that with 100% accuracy. And that is what actually saved my quant section in the CAT exam, because I attempted only 13 questions out of 22. And when I talked to my friends, they were like, we attempted 20 questions, we attempted 22 questions. But in the end, when the response sheet came, I realized that I have got all the 13 questions right. And that is what saved me. So I would say it is very important to focus on accuracy and not very much on speed. Again, it is unwise to spend, to ekdam hi, negate the speed wala part and spend 5-10 minutes on a question. That is also not advisable. But again, we should not try to eliminate the accuracy part in trying to do the section with a lot of speed.
Right. What about you, Ruchika? What have been some of your common mistakes?
Firstly, I'd like to agree with what Vaidehi said. I had the same episode on the D-Day. I had 100% accuracy in both quants and VRC actually. And but for me, early on, I'd realized that accuracy is what I want to play on and not number of questions I attempt. So that's a strategy I had in mind early on. In addition to that, two things that I would say is, firstly, sometimes when you're taking mocks, you'll come across questions which you know for sure. I mean, after taking a certain number of mocks, you realize that it's not practical to give those questions on the D-Day. And also addressing the idea that, as a non-engineer, this might be a section that you can't crack. See, the thing is, it's a standardized test. It's not a math Olympiad. And they will make the test in a way that people from different backgrounds can score above a certain threshold. And going in with that mindset that you can crack the section, not going in with any labels, that will do so much of help to you. And I don't think people stress on this idea enough. I remember I got this idea from my tutor, and he kept saying this to us, that it's not a math Olympiad. Don't treat it like one. It's just genuinely just basic 9th and 12th, not even 12th, 9th, 10th math. Because if they wanted to, they would probably include integration, right? They would include, but none of that is there. It's actually just basic math, and you need to focus on your basics, and that will do the job. in addition to that, just be open to approaches. Matlab, if you have been, let's say if in classes 9th and 10th, you solved a question in a certain way. Today you discovered a new way of solving the same question, and maybe it takes lesser time, maybe it's a smarter approach. If you can get the hang of it, be open to that idea and don't limit yourself. I used to solve questions this way, I will only do that henceforth. So just that.
Yeah, also, I guess during that time, we used to get more marks if we used to solve it in a lengthy manner. You get the
Exactly.
step-by-step marks and all of that. Yeah, right. What about you, Chirag? Based on the journey I've had for 2 years. So, yeah.
Adding to it, I would say that don't keep a fixed number in mind that, okay, like I will solve only 10 questions, or I will solve, let's say, 18 questions. Because we don't know that is the test difficult or easy. Like in CAT 2017, it was an easy paper. So we had to solve around 70% of the paper to get close to 99.5. But last year it was a bit difficult paper. We had to solve around 55% or so to reach that threshold. So don't keep a fixed number in mind. Just focus more on accuracy and you will do well.
Right. Okay, guys, my last question to you is for a non-engineer aspirant who's just starting out in June, when we have like good 6 months to CAT. Do you think that one can actually crack CAT 22? And if yes, what should be the strategy? Yeah, Chirag.
I mean, yes, they can crack the CAT. It's not that it is very, very difficult to crack, but I would say that just be consistent and don't have breaks in between. You only have around 6 months now. And also, if you are a non-engineer, then and if you are fearful of maths, then give more time to it because it will take time. You have to first build your basics, then you have to practice lots of questions, and then you have to give mocks and then also revise them. So you need to practice a lot in maths. Apart from it, you should not neglect VRC and DILR because they are also equally important. Like I am from an English background, still I scored less in VRC back in CAT 20. And the reason was the lack of practice only. I thought that I am good in English and I can solve RCs, but that was not the case. You also have to give time to it, and that's it, I guess.
Yeah, Ruchika, your take on this?
I agree with what Chirag said. I mean, you can do it in 6 months. You just need to allocate your time fairly to building your basics, preparing, and then supplementing. I would say a gradual approach helped me the most because if you'll get advice regarding the idea that you should start with mocks as soon as you can.
Right.
To learn a lot through them, which is true. But another thing that I experienced was if I had not practiced quants up until a certain threshold, just instantly taking mocks would shatter my confidence. So, like we all mentioned through the course of this conversation, maybe complete arithmetic and algebra first, then start with sectionals, then go on to mocks. And this gradual approach will not only give you more confidence, and like I said, you'll see an upward trend in your scores henceforth, but you'll also end up covering topics slowly, and obviously consistency is key. You can't miss out on that.
Right. Vaidehi?
So for quants, I would say that as Chirag mentioned, he maintained an Excel sheet, right? So similarly, I would say that maintain a record of questions that you found difficult when you were solving it for the first time, because in this way, when November will come, you'll have a set of questions that you have to that you will have to revise for the quant section, because this is a question that many of the aspirants have कि revise कैसे करना है, इतना सारा है, how to cover everything in just 1 month. So I believe maintaining such a record would help. And for overall for CAT, I would say that know your strengths and weaknesses and plan accordingly. I mean, don't follow a set schedule which your coaching classes give you, because our coaching classes are generalized, right? They have 200, 300 students, or in a batch, they have 20, 30 students. So they cannot give you a plan which works the best for you, because only you know yourself that much. So know your strengths and weaknesses, and also never accept the excuses that your brain gives to you when you don't feel like studying. I mean, it will say you things like, nahi, it is a very important party. Diwali kaise miss kar sakte ho? I know ये सब चीजें आएंगी दिमाग में, but don't accept those excuses. But also don't get इतना ज़्यादा engrossed in it कि that is cat is all that you think about. I mean, just I even mentioned this in the last webinar. I used to watch a Friends episode every day, because I know that is something that boosts my enthusiasm for studying a lot. So again, do things that you like and don't get too engrossed about it, because it's just another exam. I mean, it doesn't require you to be a perfect candidate. You can make mistakes, but just make sure that you're also learning from them. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, guys, what is your final message for CAT 22 aspirants? Ruchika?
I think from my journey, what I've realized is you really, really, really need to believe in yourself first. You'll take care of preparation, you'll take care of being calm. All of that will become part of the process. But taking a leap of faith sometimes is the most important thing, and it's the best service that you can do for yourself. So just trust the process and keep working hard. You will probably also end up in a better, either a place as good as ours or a better place next year.
Yeah. Chirag?
I would say that also make goals. Like that you have to crack CAT or you have to write CAT, but also don't make daily goals, because if you're not able to complete, let's say on a daily basis, you can make a weekly goal that this week I have to solve, let's say 20 sets, or I have to solve 25 RCs. So this way you will keep a track also, and you will also feel good that after 4 months, when you look back at that sheet, that okay, that now I have sold around 200 RCs, or I have sold 250 sets. So you will also feel more confident. So that is one thing which I did, and it really helped me to stay on the track. And just believe in yourself. If I can do it, then you can also do it.
Yeah, thank you. Vaidehi, your final 2 cents?
So in addition to what Chirag and Ruchika mentioned, I would say that first, it is good to have a few people to talk to who are giving CAT as well. Because when you get to talk to them, you realize that yes, everyone is in the same situation that you are. Everyone has a bad mock, and it is okay to feel disheartened sometimes after having a bad day at preparation. So it is good to have someone who is giving CAT as well. And second thing would be that please enjoy the process. I mean, having gone through the entire CAT preparation and interview preparation ka phase, there are days when I actually miss that schedule of giving mocks, analyzing them, and this is something that you will actually miss after having gone through the entire process. So yes, just enjoy the process, and though it may sound cliched, but you are actually going to miss it.
Yeah. So thank you so much, guys, for all your detailed answers, and thank you for making time for this webinar. I hope our audiences were able to take some tips and guidance to better organize their preparation journey, and I hope it helps them get a better percentile in CAT 22. So yeah, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye everyone. Thank you. We can leave the